Hey Flosstube, this is Shelly. Are you ready for this? Because I don't know if I am. So this will be my Flosstube number 1, and this is just going to be a short video introducing myself, showing some of the projects that I've been working on a bit of a whip parade. The other day I wrote down all my whips in the book of days, and I have 16, so it won't be a long video. And I'm a person of few words, so it should be short. Anyways, I'm really excited to be heading to the Nashville Needlework market later next week. I'll be going as a buyer, and I feel like I will recognize several of the designers there at the show, and felt like I should maybe just quickly introduce myself. And so I opened a store where I live in Vernon, BC, in Western Canada. I opened here in December of last year, and in the store I I primarily do long arm quilting for customers, and then I have a small selection of quilting fabrics, some cross-stitching threads, and I'm a retailer of fusion mineral paint. So I'm hoping to stock some cross-stitch charts. Unfortunately, there's not very many stitchers local to me. I feel like I'm pretty much the only one, but I do feel like there is a demand for more online Canadian retailers. So that's what my plan is. So this morning I woke up, had a quick shower, the kids are still in bed, and I just came down to the store, thought I'd record this quickly. And I know when I get back to the house, it'll either be, they'll be wanting to go ice fishing or up to the ski hill that's close to our house. So I'm doing this unedited, uncut, and I apologize in advance for any awkwardness because that's who I am. Anyways, so on Instagram, I keep track of my personal stitching and some quilting on there. It's at Diary of a Stitcher. And then I have a business account, which is at creativequarters.ca. So I've been posting a little bit lately of my progress on ink circles, the big red ship of life. And I'll just show that bottom border is where I've been working the last few evenings, and hopefully I'll finish that this weekend. And then I'll tuck this one away for a little bit. So I'm stitching this one 1/1 on a 28 count even weave. It's a Monaco, and I'm sure everybody has seen the chart, and I'm very excited that Tracy Horner of Ink Circles will be releasing a companion chart to this one at Nashville. What is it called? The modestly sized ship of life. So a smaller, more manageable version of the big red ship, and I will definitely be scooping that one up. And then she even mentioned that there's a smaller design on the horizon, a smaller ship, so we can look forward to that one in the future. Okay, so then for the rest of my pieces, I thought I would just go back through my cross-stitch journal that I use from the Fat Quarter Shop and just show them from oldest to newest, I guess. This one, I've got so much to learn. I need to show the charts here. So this is His Eyes on the Sparrow from Heartstring Samplery. And I'm stitching this on 28 count doubloon Lugana from Picture This Plus. And I chose this fabric in this count just because I really wanted to keep it small. I love the size. And I love the size of it over 2 on 28 count and the look. I never get tired of seeing this piece, and I'm very excited to see Beth's companion piece, Consider the Lilies, that's releasing at Nashville I will definitely be bringing that one home. All right, so then next up I have Quaker Mermaid from ORATM. And I do this with some of my charts, where I put like the original cover in the front of a duotang, and then I just make a working copy, a black and white photocopy for the remaining pages. And that seems to work, especially on the designs that are multiple pages. So, Quaker Mermaid. I am stitching this one over one on a 28 count blue Monaco that I lightly tea and coffee dyed. It's pretty subtle. And I'm converting the threads as I go, just to brighten it up a little bit and fit my taste. And the colors, this was going to go in a guest bathroom at her house. I don't know if it still will end up there, but kind of converting the colors and winging it as I go on that one. All right, okay, so next up I have what I call my memorial sampler, and this is a piece I'm stitching in memory of my mom. She passed away in 2015, and I started this one in April 2018. I'm stitching it on 40 count vintage overcast from Lakeside Linens, and I'm using this was my mom's favorite color, kind of an eggplant. So I'm using Soy Cristal in the color 6021, and that's the silk for that piece. And I always get questions about the design when I work on that one and post it online. So I'm using bands from these pieces from Heartstring Samplery. I've got my Love to Keep Me Warm and my Funny Valentine. So I'm using a combination of bands from both of these designs, and I think I actually have a third one of Beth's, just using the bands from that as well. And then I got the inspiration or the sentiment from here, and I just stitched it using a font, a cross-stitch font that I found online. And then, I don't know, I'm still undecided, but I think like in these areas around the font, I might fill in a little bit with some black work. I haven't really figured out what I will do there yet, but I do need to work on that one and finish that up. Okay, so next up I have All Creatures Great and Small from Barbara Anna. And every time I look at one of my Barbara Anna designs, I remember the pre-market video that Teresa and Susie Reno made last year. I had so much fun, and I've gone back and watched that video because it's just, they're hilarious, and I look forward to meeting both of them at market. So, All Creatures Great and Small. I'm stitching this one on Picture This Plus a Fog, and it's a 40 count linen. And I'm using the anchor threads. I was just working recently up in this area, and once I finish this little building, I will go back to finish the border. I can't believe I didn't do that first, actually, because I really enjoy stitching borders, and I usually do my borders first. And this here was overly optimistic of me, but I was so sure that I was going to finish this as one of my Stitch 9 pieces last year. I put the year in there, and I think I'm going to leave it. I just, yeah, I can't take that out, so. Alright, so next up is a design that I love, but I've considered abandoning just because I I'm more drawn towards larger pieces and samplers lately. So, but this is Gathering Honey from Plum Street Samplers. And I was planning to shuffle things around a little bit. Maybe not stitch a few of the motifs. I can't even remember. I don't think I was planning to stitch this alphabet here, but I started this during Stitch Mania in 2018, and actually a lot of these whips are from Stitch Mania 2 years ago. So Gathering Honey, I started this on 40 count vintage overcast from Lakeside, and this is all I accomplished in May 2 years ago, and it's been sitting ever since. And as far as I know, just called for threads and everything on these ones. Unless I have a note here, it's usually just what the chart has called for. Okay, next is a Betrothed from GGR. And the picture is quite dark on this cover photo, but you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. And I'm considering maybe making this like an anniversary sampler and putting or my wedding anniversary on here. I was married in 2000. I can't believe it's been 19 years. That's crazy. So I started this during Stitch Mania 2 years ago, and it is 40 count vintage Meadow Rue. This is just what I would have stitched on May 11th, 2018, and it's been sitting ever since. And okay, so next up is Peaceful Paradise. This is a design from Midsummer Night Designs. It's a discontinued or out of print chart. And so I drove myself crazy looking for this a few years ago. I saw someone post their finish on Facebook and decided, well, I love it and I needed to have it and I couldn't find it anywhere. And eventually a lady on a buy and sell group on Facebook reached out to me. She had this and wanted to sell it, and so I was just thrilled to get my hands on this design and to make a start on it. So I started this during Mania 2 years ago, and then I recently, like just in January, I stitched the sun and this angel here in the middle. And last Saturday, I optimistically took this when I took my son ice fishing. I took this project along, and I don't even know if you can tell, but there's like one row of blue stitches. Yeah, there wasn't much time for cross stitching, and I found out it's kind of challenging to stitch in an ice fishing tent. You're in the dark, and I was, I didn't have my readers or any sort of light or anything, so I was just kind of going by feel. So I felt like, okay, I'm stitching this, but when I get home, do I have to rip it out? We'll have to see how this goes, but anyways. Okay, next up I have Moment in Chalk from Hands On Design. I'm really looking forward to seeing Kathy's Nashville releases. And just the way her pieces are finished, it's always so inspiring to see her finishes. So I have this started on 35 count gunmetal from Weeks Dye Works. And I think Nicole from Nicole's Needlework maybe stitched this with just the one strand on 35 count, and I just loved the way it looked and needed to stitch it too. So someday I will get back to this one, and I'm just stitching like the main, this piece, and I don't plan on stitching any of the smaller designs that surrounded this piece. I really do like the colors, and I love the appearance of any of the chalk designs. Just, yeah, anything that's done on a dark linen seems to really pop. Okay, next I have Thousand Hills from Plum Street. And this is another one that I absolutely love when I see a finish of it online. It's a beautiful design, but it's one that I've considered abandoning. I'm not really sure why I do this, but quite often I take a design that's already perfect and I shuffle things around, and it's just the way my brain works, and I don't know, I've kind of regretted maybe some of the changes I planned on making on this one, and so it's been sitting since I started it during Mania 2 years ago. And this is on 40 count Picture This Plus Fresco with called for threads. Okay, I feel like things are kind of a little bit out of order here. Oh, I know why. So next up I have the Portuguese bird sampler from Barbara Anna. Yeah, Teresa and Susie Reno, you're all I can think about when I pull out one of my Barbara Anna designs. Anyways, I started this during Mania 2018. It's just stitched with DMC. And the linen is a 40 count Zweigart alabaster linen. I actually really like, it's a beautiful linen. It's a little plainer than what I usually go for, but I like the way it looks. Keep rolling away. Okay, next up I have Heart of the Home sampler from Brenda Gervais. And Brenda has some absolutely gorgeous designs releasing at Nashville. They will all be coming home with me. And I started this on 40 count flax linen, which is also kind of a safe linen choice for me. I usually go with something that's been dyed. Called for threads, started that during Mania as well. And yeah, I don't know what it is about this design. It's just cute. That little house, the colors, little rabbit in there. It's adorable. Okay, next up I have Elizabeth Jordan, 1841. And so I started cross-stitching about 5 years ago. Well, I started cross-stitching when my mom was in hospital and she was sick, and so I needed a project that I could work on when I was with her in the hospital. And so when I started cross-stitching 5 years ago, I was really drawn to more like whimsical designs, and the very first piece that I stitched was from Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. It was the, oh my goodness, was the storybook? Anyways, that's kind of what I was drawn to initially, and then I've noticed that, like, in the beginning I would look at samplers and I would kind of think, like, why would people want to stitch those? And especially with all the ones with a lot of alphabets. But this sampler, Elizabeth Jordan 1841, I think this might have been one of the first sampler charts reproductions that I ever purchased. And I purchased this when I was visiting Traditional Stitches in Calgary. And they're actually my closest needlework shop, 5.5 or 6 hours away, and so anytime I can get there I just love going into their store. But this sampler appealed to me just because of the big flowers in the border and the brick house and the trees, and So I bought this, and now all I want to stitch is samplers. Like, it's hard for me to go back to some of these pieces I started even 2 years ago because of my taste changing, and I just am really drawn to reproduction samplers especially, and I've even purchased 4 antique samplers that I plan to reproduce someday. I will show them in a video. Like this one especially, I was so excited to find on a local buy and sell page. I just couldn't believe that there was an antique sampler living in close proximity to me. So anyways, someday. Okay, so I showed the chart and I got off on a tangent, but what I like to with the Elizabeth Jordan sampler is that there's a companion, or what I call a companion sampler. There's another sampler from Queenstown Sampler that is similar, and it just has big flowers in the border and has the house, and I plan to stitch that in the future as well as a companion to this one. So I am stitching this one on 40 count vintage Misty Rain from Lakeside Linens, and I'm using DMC, and I'm just so pleased with the way that the colors look on this linen. And I really need to get back to this one. I do really enjoy working on that one. Okay. Next up I have a Peacock, a Unicorn, a Badger from the Scarlet Letter. I started this one in June 2018, so I'm not even sure what I was thinking after starting all those pieces in Mania, starting another big one after, but anyways. So I initially started this one on, well, I ordered the chart, the linen, and the silks from the Scarlet Letter. I started it on the 40 count linen with silks, and I can't remember why I wasn't enjoying myself, but I decided to change. And what I ended up doing was I found a large enough piece of 32 count fabric in my stash that I didn't think I was ever going to do anything with. Like, it just was a color that, well, this happens to me a lot actually. When you live where I do and you order your fabrics online, what you get isn't always what it looked like online or what you're expecting. And so it was a linen that I wasn't probably going to do anything with, and so I dyed this, and I was hoping to achieve a color that was pretty close to the background stitching in this piece. And so I'm thinking, yes, if I can get a color close to that, then I will save myself from having to stitch all those background stitches. And yeah, so I'm just using 2 strands of DMC now on this 32 count linen. I'm really happy with the way that looks. But with this piece, I feel like we were house hunting when I was starting a lot of these Mania starts, and this one here. And the house that we ended up buying and the aesthetic of our home is a lot different than what I thought we were going to end up with, and so I just don't know if this fits where I thought I'd want to have it. But yeah, I'm going to finish it and find a place for it. Okay, so next I have the Pinko sampler from Plum Street. I was definitely enabled by Carol Saltbuck Stitcher on this one. There's been so many others that have enabled me. Every time I see this, I just, yeah. Makes me think of one of my grandmas. I have a grandma that is very fond of the color pink. She dresses in pink. She just has always loved pink, and so this design makes me think of my grandma. She will be 94 in May. So this is her birth year, 1926. And I've shortened the borders a little bit and shuffled some motifs around. I'm not sure if I'll put my grandmother's name on the sampler, but it's very much her sampler. So I need to finish all those pink stitches in the house and then stitch the grass at the bottom, and this one will be done. This is on 40 count navy bean linen from Lakeside. I'm so sad that Lakeside won't be at Market and Picture This Plus, because for me it is such a treat to be able to see fabrics in person. Like I mentioned, Traditional Stitches is my closest shop and they're 6 hours away. And then last year I went to the Midwest retreat, and so I got to go to Stitchville, which was amazing. But those are the only two shops I've ever, or no, that's a lie. There's a shop in Edmonton, Alberta, the Craft Connection, that I've also been in. So I've been in 3 different shops. But any time that I can see a linen in person is just such a treat. And I love it when others show their fabrics and you know, give the details on the fabrics they're using, because it helps me shop for fabrics. Last one. So this is the English Garden from Samplers Not Forgotten. And there was 2 designs that released last year at Market that just excited me so much. This was one of them. And I love the frame that she finished this with. But even though I fell in love with this design, I convinced myself I was not going to stitch it. And then I think it was Lisa, Kindred Stitcher, and I don't even remember if she was working on it at the retreat last year in May or just what she posted online. And I was so enabled, and I had to start. So this is on 40 count Lakeside Tundra. I actually ended up buying this linen from a stitcher that was doing a de-stash on Instagram, Carissa's Life. And so I was really happy to start it on that linen, and I'm using the called for threads, except for I have a note here that I'm subbing Classic Colorworks Colonial Rose for Weeks Dye Works Cinnabar. But I haven't even got to that color yet, so yeah. So those are my whips. And then this morning, before I jumped in the car to come down here and do this, I popped onto Instagram and I noticed that Emily C. is having her birthday sale. And so I have 2 Scarlet house designs that I'm itching to start. I mean, her new designs are all coming home with me as well. But these are the 2 that I've narrowed it down to, and these are in the must stitch, waiting in the wings bin. And so Martha Pudsey or Susan Wasbend, I love them both. And I have linens at home that would suit, and I'm really conflicted. I don't know which one to start. So maybe later on today on Instagram I might be posting my start on one of these reproductions. So if anyone watches this, if you have an opinion on which one I should start, you can leave a comment in the bottom. And if you have popped on here and watched this video, thank you for joining me. And I just want to say thank you to the Flosstube community, because I have been so inspired, and I'm just thankful for the hours of company that you've given me while I'm stitching. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you again in a future video. Goodbye.